Hey friends, you've heard many times that a child's behavior is communication. How do you deal with that when you are trying to create a thriving family and you're dealing with adoption trauma, second language, and resistance to change? And that would be the stuff we know about and the stuff that we don't really realize is going on inside of us, which is not conscious yet to us. Today's guest, Maria Didio, shares her story of growth and learning that can apply to a blended family of all sorts, and frankly, it'll probably apply to your family too, even if it's not a blended family. Because issues that pertain to people pertain to people. I'm glad you're here. You're going to love this episode as Maria is raw and real. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned. Because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Welcome back, listeners. This week, I want to take a moment to thank the listeners of Sri Lanka. The Language of Play has been the #1 parenting podcast in your country this week. So thank you very much for listening. Now to everybody, mark your calendars for August 19th. Go to the show notes and sign up for either 10:30 a.m. or 6:30 p.m., that is Central Time, and make sure to convert it to your time zone, you people in Sri Lanka and others around the world. I am doing a webinar that day with 2 time zones specifically to reach the global audience who is listening. So many requests have come back for this webinar that I have titled Beyond Obedience, Unveiling the Power of Listening in Kids. And we will discuss the various aspects of listening and discover how strengthening listening skills can pave the way to your child's success in communicating. If you think about it, there are many different skills involved in listening. And it's not just hearing words. It's understanding, it's interpreting, it's responding, and so much more. And when it comes to speech-language development in children, listening skills are absolutely crucial. So I encourage you to join. This webinar will be just about an hour long, and it will be free at this time. Next, I want to say I am so grateful to my sponsor, the Center for Play and Exploration. The Center for Play and Exploration is an organization that supports adults in restoring some of the childlike wonder you had as a kid. As parents, we do get so busy that we get lost in our to-do list and our other tasks of life while we try to keep up. And you know what I mean. We lose our spontaneity and we lose our joy. We become stuck, burnt out, and recovering our delight can feel impossible. But what if you could change how you feel just by changing how you think? This is one way you will benefit from contacting Dave at the Center for Play and Exploration, and you can use the link in the show notes, and if you mention the Language of Play, you get 20% discount. And by the way, if you're looking for an engaging speaker for one of your events, you can call them for that too. All right, let's get into this pre-recorded episode with Anna Maria Didio. Anna Maria Didio is an adoptive mother, speaker, and author of multiple best-selling children's books. She's a swimmer, quilter, washed-up athlete, and baker who is addicted to thin and crispy chocolate chip cookies. She resides in the city of brotherly love. Welcome, Anna Maria Didio.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I am so glad to have you on The Language of Play. You are talking about a topic that we haven't talked about very often, so it's really important to have this topic on. And your topic is adoption and adoption trauma. And we're going to talk about how the communication aspect really impacted that adoption experience.
Yes, well, I was slow getting to that conclusion myself. So that was the reason for wanting to write the books, because parents with all good intentions and ambitions undertake adoption, but we really don't talk about the trauma of it. And so in highlighting that aspect in my children's books, I'm hoping to open up the conversation between parents and children so that parents are not threatened by it and children can talk openly about the struggles that they're having.
Yeah. And in your situation, it was particularly hard because you had the dual language issue also. Now, I want to say, listeners, I have read two of Anna Maria's books. I've read Love at the Border and I read Carla the Conqueror. So let's start by talking about Carla the Conqueror, because it's just simple. It is one of the children's books, and you have written multiple children's books. So when I read it, I thought to myself, Carla shows courage. There's kindness in the sister, discernment from the teacher. She's problem solving, and she comes to this conclusion at the end that she can do hard things. And it was just such a beautiful wrap up. Tell me what inspired the book.
Well, actually, all three of the children's books were inspired by our actual family events. So I began with Many People to Love, and that's really the story of Carla, the main character, being acclimated to her new home and her new life. And then there's a book, How I Wonder Where You Are. And that is Carla asking questions, where do I come from? Who do I look like? And she's questioning her birthdays can be triggering for adoptees. And at the time of her birthday, she's wondering, she has a sister who is biological to the family. And sometimes she's jealous of her. Carla doesn't look like her parents. So anyway, then in Carla the Conqueror, again, a true life example here of my daughter who grew up speaking Spanish, and within a few months, however, lost her Spanish. However, reading and writing in English was always very difficult for her. So at her first read aloud assignment for her class, even though she was reading a story that she loved, it was absolutely terrifying. So she had a wonderful relationship with her ESL teacher. I'm not sure they call it anymore, language development, or a woman that was helping her with the English language.
Mm-hmm. I think we can use ESL as
ESL. Okay.
Yeah, because I think people still remember the acronym of English language learning, or yes. English as a second language.
Second language.
Yes.
And this woman, because of her relationship with her, it was a comfort to her to spend time and practice over and over and sound out the words and go. So, getting enough courage to read out loud to her classmates.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I thought when I read it of the students that I've worked with that come and they're not speaking English, and the process of that. And I actually do teach English as a foreign language, which is a little different structure, but it's a different certificate. And so I do love working with kiddos with second language. It's fun. And families. You have another book, and the one that I read was Love at the Border. And now this is your story. And yes. You explain the fascinating cultural differences with the era as well as the country, how you met the characters Priscilla in the book, and then how you brought her home, and then it goes on from there. I want to say kudos. That's an easy read. It just flowed, and I picked it up and I didn't put it down. It was like a really comfortable, take me on a journey, get lost in my imagination type of read. And so you taught me a lot about you and your life without me stressing. I read it actually late at night too, which is when my brain is a little more tired. And so that tells me it's an especially easy read. And so well done. Kudos for parents to be able to read. Probably the only time they're able is when they're tired.
That's true. That's true.
So rather than me summarizing your book, can you tell me, like, how did you, what did you learn in this book?
Oh, wow. It was a long lesson. Let's just say that. So we adopted our daughter, and the whole process took about 2 years. And during that time, of course, going through all the paperwork, people would say to us, she's so lucky. She's going to be in this wonderful family. She's so lucky to be part of your world. And for years, upon joining our family, and for years afterward, I bought into that whole scenario of the lucky child. And unfortunately, her behavior was telling me something totally different. So I began to investigate and learned about trauma in adoption, beginning with the primal wound. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Why don't you explain for our listeners with a primal wound?
Mm-hmm. But I did discover that, and it's explained in the book. And primal wound is really the trauma that results from the initial biological separation of the child from the adoptive mother. And so that even when...
Wait a second. I think you didn't say...
The separation from the biological mother.
Right.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. And then even if the child is adopted as an infant, that trauma can still manifest itself, months later, years later. And for our daughter, as I read this, I thought, oh my goodness, how this trauma was not only the primal wound, but after 6 more years in a different country, she just lost everything. Her, not only the language, but sights and sounds, her caregivers, food, music, anything connected to her daily life.
Mm-hmm. All of the familiar things that make her feel human and connected were changed. Yeah.
And it took me really too long to realize that. And that's why in writing these books, I thought, well, these are concepts that adoptive parents need to explore and be ready for, and not be afraid of them. I think the unique thing about my books is that they're topics that are not discussed that often, but in the end, if addressed early and giving that child permission to wonder and think about these things, it can perhaps minimize that trauma, perhaps, and just create a more open and thriving blended family.
Yeah. Yeah. In the book, you talk about yourself as impatient, and the former Anna Maria.
Correct.
And you tell us about the change in you as the change was happening. Can you tell us a little bit about how, as a listener, because you dive into it so well in the book, where your sense of control, you're wanting to be this thing, this perfect picture, was a drive. And you mentioned that just a little bit now. Can you tell us what goes on under the surface for those of us that have this desire to control, to have things look perfect, be perfect, in order to feel better about ourselves?
Well, I would say the events that helped turn me around, of course, my own daughter was teaching me those lessons, because we had a biological daughter and they were very close in age. So we had come to the decision to adopt at one point, but then I got pregnant and we had our biological child. But then adding to our family was really the issue. We wanted a larger family. So the experience raising these two girls was just completely different. And in my mind, I was sticking to the initial script, wanting the the love and the adoration, the imitation, the relationship, everything to be the same. And again, her behavior and my relationship with my adopted daughter was at the same time teaching me something totally different. And I was somewhat resistant until I really discovered this primal wound and realized it was the trauma talking to me. It was she had the love. She has our daughter. Okay, so now they're both grown, of course, 29 and 30 years old. But she had such capacity for love, and it wasn't all just tears and trauma. We had many moments of wonderful family, bonding and experiences. But the transition to really accepting us as a family and that true bonding did take many years.
Sure. Well, let's talk about that because behavior is communication. It is a form.
Exactly.
It is. It is a form of communication. If you were to talk about her behavior as communication, and you're telling us this primal wound, could you tell us in more plain words what you now know her communication was? Because in her book, you also talk about she refused to speak English at the beginning, and it was an intense struggle to adjust. But of course, our bodies, and with children, they don't have any filters, so their bodies are just speaking. So tell me about the communication for our listeners that happens with the children through their body when they don't have the language and the words.
Well, of course, the actions, that old phrase, the action speaks louder than words. So I think I recall one time in my memoir, we were at a back to school night, and the children had all of their artwork in the hallways and science projects and whatnot. So I went over to my daughter's classroom, and all of the artwork was hanging in the hallway, and the theme of that artwork was, please draw someone that is special to you, someone that is special in your life. So, of course, I was literally skipping down the hallway, hoping to see myself, expecting to see myself at a 16 by 20 poster board. And so I get in front of the poster board with clearly my daughter's name at the bottom of it, but there's a blonde woman holding a baby or something. I said, who is this? And it was just such a wake-up call to me. You are not important to this child yet. She's not thinking of you. Or perhaps she wants to communicate to you that there are other people that she relies on. Clearly, by then at school, she was spending more time at school maybe than she even was with me. And this teacher she had really taken to, the teacher had just recently returned from maternity leave and had a baby. And in her mind, the teacher had let my daughter hold the baby. And that was, the orphanage had many such situations. It was a large...
where she came from, where your adoptive daughter came from.
Yes,
and she was 7. One of the things we didn't set was the ground.
Yes, she was 7.
Yeah, she was 7 when she came to you, and from an orphanage in Mexico.
And so being part of the caregiving group of children, by the time she was 7, perhaps she was entrusted to hold babies and such. And that whole experience was so wonderful for her. This is what she drew. She was not thinking about me. And so many things like that. Not eating the foods that I cooked, or even if we would go out for just hanging back and not walking with the family. So all of this was just, it was hurtful to me. But after I understood where this was coming from, I just had to say to myself, dial it back a bit. Like, don't be so. I was always expecting her to be right on point and right up with the group and paying attention to everything, when she needed so much more time to process everything. And
yeah, she had some really big things happen. So these are some real good examples of behaviors that parents can know to recognize as as emotional things coming up. A child hanging back behind, not
Right, that
wanting to eat your.
disassociation. Right.
Yeah, that's a good, yep.
So,
Disassociate
so
by
important.
stepping back, not eating the food, not connecting with you in whatever way it is. So, what do you think if there was a thing that would have really anchored in for the early Anna Maria, right? If you could talk to the younger version of you and say, know this thing, what do you think that thing would be for you?
Well, and just a word, patience. Patience, understanding, slowing things down, and not immediately reacting to, um, this isn't how I pictured this event to be. So what? In my mind, like I feel like saying, shut up. There was too much. I was editing everything,
Yeah.
editing all of our family experiences with my expectations. And the time was really belonged to her to unravel everything. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I take these individual thoughts and make them things to explore in my book. So families can pull it apart patiently and talk about it and explore these concepts with children. They're books for interaction. They're books for communication and understanding, not just a passive, read aloud experience.
That's great. And so that would be is it four children's books that you've written?
Well, three for ages approximately 4 to 8, 4 to 10. And then my first middle grade book was just released called Grace's Right Time. And that's about a 12-year-old. And she actually meets a boy who's adopted, and they have a secret adventure. He's looking for his birth mom. So he's
Mm.
also looking to uncover some
Yeah.
secrets from his past.
Connections to their roots. Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was fun to write, and I think I'm going to continue with more of that middle grade, and then we'll see where we go from there.
I think that's fabulous. I'm glad that you're doing this because there is so much around adoption. So much. And I think that when you discuss what it is that you had felt and dealt with early on like that,
Mm-hmm.
I think you're describing what can happen in many families, like even in disability or something. What you end up with is not what you expected. The experience of what you
Right.
end up with is not the experience we expect. When I hear what you talk about, it sounds like this process of letting go, letting go of expectation, learning to be present in the moment. And that sounds like how I would describe what it is that you are saying. Do you think that's accurate?
Oh, yes, of course. And it sounds a bit obvious, like it wasn't about me. It's not about me. It was about my child's experience and my child's feelings. And yes, I probably should have understood that better. But when you're, and I think this applies to many types of blended families, and that's how I try and market the books. There are many families that are blended due to foster care, to divorce and remarriage, or perhaps there are cousins that are even visiting, or families come together in all sorts of ways. But it's a matter of really paying attention, as you said, to those behaviors and taking note, and not about the expectations, what we want as parents, how we pictured the event to go. I remember, and even the children's relationship to each other. What are they doing? What are they saying to each other? We
Mm-hmm.
would go to a band concert in elementary school. And my biological daughter, and she was in the band. But then the younger daughter, she would just dive under her seat and crawl under the seats. She didn't want to pay attention. She didn't want to be there. And and I was just, oh, this is, I look like a bad mother. I can't keep my child in her seat. And what is she
Mm.
doing? And it was just also not really understanding what she was trying to tell me. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of paying attention and dissecting those
Which is a
those
lot of work.
Yes.
And you started this part by saying that it's really all about the child, but I'm going to add it's really also about you, because it sounds to me like, and I've seen this many times over, and it was true of me too. When we're young in our life, particularly, or early in our stages of development, we do see the world more through that lens of how am I appearing? What do I seem like to other people?
Right.
What are other people thinking of me in this experience? And so you want to control it so you look good, you feel good. And so even though we think about it as being about the kid, there is this aspect that is inside us that takes a while to come to awareness. And then once it comes to awareness, then we can start to decide, am I going to deal with that? And I think to realize this is really what you've described in your book, what you've described even here on the podcast, is really about all families. It's about like the development of the family, the development of parents, and therefore then the kids.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because I bet she wasn't really able to develop until you developed. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes, because she felt um, she had the room to be more herself once I
Yeah.
think I showed a bit more understanding, and
Yeah.
it was all about maybe hiding from me, hiding, feelings, emotions, and truth. And so as that relationship developed, I think those things definitely improved.
Yeah. Well, you did a fantastic job with your book, with describing your experience. And if you were to say something to the listeners, if you were to leave them one thought, what if they're in a situation where they've got behaviors with their kiddo, and maybe they're blended family, maybe they're adopted family, whatever the situation is,
Mm-hmm.
what would be, if you were to give one nugget? I mean, there's so many nuggets. Your books are full of nuggets. If you were to give one nugget today, what do you think is the starting spot?
Oh, wow. The starting spot is really, self-examination. Like just stop with, I had so many, um, I was going to say pre-recorded, but you know what I mean? I had so many typical responses
Well, it is kind of
or,
pre-recorded. It's a default dialogue going on in our head, isn't it?
right.
Yes.
In terms of my expectations. So letting go of expectations is really that is so hard, having zero expectations. And if that's the
Yeah.
mindset, when I really focused on that as a strategy, I always left the situation more satisfied. I mean, if I had all these early on, I had many expectations, and I was always disappointed. I failed, we failed. She's not behaving. She's mad at me. The girls aren't getting along. But with zero expectations, you're more. I was able to let things flow and react in the moment and not be so rehearsed, if that makes sense.
Oh,
So,
absolutely makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very, very much for sharing. And yeah, how can our listeners work with you if they have questions about how to deal with their adoption?
Well, contact information is on my
I'll have it,
website.
and I'll have it in the show notes, listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. So reach out at any point. I do some, informal coaching. I'm always writing. And if any listeners would love to reach out, I integrate, real experiences in my writing and in my stories. So, I do collect adoption stories for people that want to share. And,
Oh, that's really cool to know. Did you hear
yeah.
that, listeners? If you have an adoption story, Anna Maria would love to collect your story. That's great.
Yeah. So, and then the last book, the new book, actually, this is my first attempt at a middle grade novel. So Grace's Right Time is available now on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Nice. Thank you again for being here today and for the work that you are doing to help families with adoption and adoption trauma. I'm so glad that you have worked through that communication and learned to help others too with it.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me. Great conversation.
Thanks. In closing, I want to encourage you to go to the show notes and sign up for the August 19th webinar, Beyond Obedience, Unveiling the Power of Listening in Kids, and also in the show notes to check out the Center for Play and Exploration and contact Dave. Tell them the Language of Play sent you for a 20% discount. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.